I'm going to put new boot kits because one of these was just damaged right there. It's open. Pull the pins, clean it. Always replace the hardware. I always say this. People don't do it. You're just causing problems for yourself. Always pull the hardware. Get that off of there. I'm sorry, run over it. You always want to come in behind it, right here. Hopefully you can see that. In behind where it's all rusty. Take a file. I'm going to take a file in here. I'm going to clean this up. I'm going to stick it on the wire wheel, clean it all up, replace the bad boots, and get it. And then I'm going to re-grease in behind it. I'll show you that. But I'm going to go clean this up. I'm just going to show you real quick before I do this. So I use this little square file, and I'll come in here, and what I do is just take the rust off. I don't want to take the metal off, but I want to clean the rust out. Now, I'm going to take it to the wire wheel when I'm done, but if the rust is pretty significant, just wire wheeling it kind of polishes, doesn't take it off. So I'm going to come in here and clean this all off before I take it to the wire wheel. If you have a sandblaster, you can use a sandblaster. I'll do that on both ends, and then I'll come back and we'll pull the pins and we'll clean them up. I'll show you what I do with them. I went over to the file that, hopefully you can see this. I don't know how well you can see it, but I'm trying to get a shot at it for you. Nice and clean in behind there. So I'm going to pull my pins. We're going to replace the boots on these. That one's the best one to look on the wall. Most of them look like that. They're just all junked up. There's not much left of them. We'll just pull the boot off of them. Clean them off. I'm going to take them to the wire wheel. This groove up top, you want to get all the corrosion out of that groove at the top there. Make sure you do that. And then before you put them back in, clean them up real good. Use some brake clean, whatever. Get them clean. Alright, these pins are both the same up top and bottom, so you don't have to worry about switching them around. So what I like to do, I'm cleaning these out, is spray right into them, right down into the hole. Kind of tip it down. Then take a drill bit that's just small enough to get in there, and kind of run it down in there. Clean the old stuff out. If you got a wire brush, you can do it with that. The drill bit, I find, if you get the right size, works pretty well because the flutes help to grab the grease and pull it out of there. I'll do that on both sides. Clean them out really good. This is the stuff, I'm not saying replace the boots every time, but make sure your slide pins are sliding, greased like they should be. Replacing the hardware. That stuff matters. It really does. It's not hard to do, but it makes a difference in how the brakes work and whether or not they're gonna last longer. Okay, I've got enough on those pins. I can just clean them off good. I'm gonna go blow this out with compressed air. I'm gonna take these to the wire wheel and clean them up, and then we'll put the new boots on. I'll be back. I'm gonna get my boots here. So right here, I'm gonna put my boots back on. These are the same on both ends. Doesn't really matter which way they go. Some are not. In this case, they are. What I like to do is just put a little bit of silicone spray in the end. Makes it easier to get them on there, and just push them on. Make sure they seat all the way. Just like that. The same on the other end. Good. Ready to go. Now, pins. I use Ultra Disc Brake Caliper Loom Permatex. It's just what I like for these, for the actual slide pins. Thin coat on these. Get my bolts here. I like to do this. Put my slide pin bolt back in so I can hold on to it. Makes sense, doesn't it? I think. Don't get grease all over my hands, like they're not dirty enough already. But no big deal. Just turn them in. And something to hold on to. Make sure you get some in the groove at the top. So a thin coat. You put too much in here, it'll lock them up. Kind of creates a hydraulic locking kind of thing going on. I don't know what to call it. Action. Symptom. So a thin coat. All the way in there. Get them coated good. Not real heavy, just a thin coat. Slide them in. Now, the boots. See how I push that back out? It's full of air. Let me get a little screwdriver and show you what I do. You've got to kind of burp the air out of it. So I push it down and I get a screwdriver. Don't poke a hole in it. I just kind of, I don't know if you heard that. I was talking, but I just kind of pry it back a little bit and let the air out. Now you can see it's collapsed. And there's no air in it, which is what I want. Same thing on the other end. I'm not trying to talk during this one, and maybe you'll hear the air coming out of it. If it is this one, should probably do the same thing, most likely. Okay. Push it in. Now, listen. Hopefully you'll hear it. Yeah, just did the same thing. A little more. There we go. Don't poke a hole in it, but now they're totally, there's no air in them, which is you want to squeeze that air out of them. Okay. Now, I grease behind the hardware before I put the hardware on. That's why I cleaned them. The reason I do that is rust will build up behind the hardware. Good hardware stainless steel. It doesn't need to be greased on top of it, I don't think. Always a big discussion and a big argument. I'm going to grease in here, keep moisture out from behind the hardware, because it tends to, if it gets in behind the hardware, it pushes the hardware in and pinches the pad, and then it don't work right. So I use this for metal to metal, Ceramic Extreme Permatex. I don't use it for rubber anymore, where it meets rubber, because some of the manufacturers, the composition of the rubber has a problem with this stuff. Toyota, I think in particular, I've never seen it, but I've heard it, so I just don't use it for it. I'll use it till I run out, and then I'll probably go to the silicone. There's a silicone formula, which I have. I just haven't opened it yet because I'm not out of this, and I have that. I'll probably use that everywhere once I'm done. I do like the consistency of this stuff for metal to metal. It's got a little more, it's a little stiffer than this. And I think it sticks a little better and stays on there. And I've done brakes where they come back in for the next go around the brakes, and this stuff is still there, and that's what you want. You want to keep the moisture out. So grease behind it. Take our clips, put our clips in place, get them lined up here, pushed into place good. Same on this end. Didn't like that one. Didn't like my placement on that one. There we go. Now it's ready to go back on. It's all good to go. Let me tip you back up. We'll hook this bracket back up. I will use Permatex, blue Permatex on the bolts for the caliper, mounting caliper, the mounting bracket for the caliper. I will torque them. I'm not going to tell you the torque spec because there's a lot of different variations for this car. Look them up. Whatever you have, 4-wheel drive, 2-wheel drive, torsion bar suspension, coil spring suspension, they're all probably, they might be the same, but there's a good chance they're different, so look them up. You didn't even see that, did you? Well, it might help if I actually put you and look so you can see what I'm doing. Alright, I've got my bolts started to my mounting bracket here. Let me run them in and I'll torque them. Snug them both up. Alright, let me go get a torque wrench and torque them up, and then we'll come back and do the caliper and the pads. Alright, so caliper. I want to clean these. I did this the other day when I had it apart. Clean the face of these, get the corrosion off of the pistons, get the corrosion off of these tabs, the back of these tabs, which I already did the other day. There's a piece of hardware, looks like this, that's in here. I want to get that off, replace that, and I'm going to grease behind that as well, because that can get pushed up and cause problems as well. So unclip that. These were pretty rusty behind here, but I went in here and I cleaned them the other day. I cleaned a lot of it out of there. I'm going to come in with the same Ceramic Extreme. I'm going to cover the face of these pistons. Actually, I don't want to do that yet because I got to push the pistons back in. I just have to do it again. Let me push the pistons in I always forget. I just take an old pad. You can use a C-clamp, big pair of vice grips, big pair of channel locks or whatever. I just have this little tool. And even though it's two piston, it'll still work. You just have to do it on both sides. Just turn them in. They should go in easy. I'll squeeze the one that I don't have it on as I push the other one. Push them all the way in. They'll bottom out. Bottoms out. Went in real easy. Take the tool out of there. It's had spiders living in there. It's sitting for a while. Now, I like to clean the, if I had to clean these and get the corrosion off them before I push them in, that way there's less chance of you hitting that dust seal and tearing it. We put a coat of grease on the end of the piston face here, both sides. I'll put it down here underneath where that piece of hardware goes. I'd keep the moisture out of there. And then on the back of these tabs. Thin coat. All you're doing is trying to keep moisture out of there. Keep the corrosion from starting in there and pushing everything around, causing problems. Alright. Now, push this new piece of hardware down in here. Hopefully not fight with it forever, I hope. Come on. Come on. I said hopefully. Doesn't mean that it will work. This end does not want to go in, does it? Get in there. There we go. Clip that in. Now the pads that came off of here did not have an indicator. There's an indicator on this set. I'm going to put it on the inside. I don't know where it goes, but outside's kind of tough. I don't think it usually goes on the outside. So we're going to put it on the inside. Put our pads in place here. Just try to. Should go right in there. Should go in easy. And with the outside, tip them in like this first. Get them past the bracket. And slide them right into place like that. Squeeze them up against there. And take my slide pin bolts out. Now there's flats on the end of the slide pins. They fit into the groove here, so you may have to line them up. Make sure your line is not all twisted up. Seen that? Don't make it a pigtail. Line your flats up on your end of your slide pins. Start the top one here. Bottom one in place. Line that up. And we're just going to snug these up. These you don't need to crush these. There's a pretty small bolt. Just snug them up. Don't go nuts. You want to torque them to whatever they're torqued. They're probably 18 foot-pounds maybe. They're not that much. Pretty small bolt. Blocking all your light, aren't I? Said I was going to get my flashlight. That was like the beginning of this job, and I never did. Sitting there on the ground. Snug this up. Good. Now, these should move in and out pretty easy, and they do. On the slide pins, before you drive it, pump your brakes till they get firm. You get a scary moment. That's about it. I'm going to take it out. I'm going to bed these. So I'm going to take it out, drive it up to 40, 50 miles an hour, slow it down pretty aggressively to about 10, 15 miles an hour. I'll do that a couple times, drive it a little bit, let it cool off a little bit, and go through that process maybe 8, 10 times. Bed the pads to the rotor so they're seated well and bedded, what they call bedded well, and they'll work better for you. You want to do that, but pretty simple. Obviously, we'll put the wheel back on, and it's good to go.